How does a Hollywood star fall? One morning, you wake up and your phone doesn't ring. Your manager doesn't call. Producers don't give appointments. Studio security doesn't recognize you. Sal Mineo lived like a shadow in Hollywood for 8 years between 1961 and 1969. Despite 2 Oscar nominations, as the doors of major studios closed one by one, he was forced to portray a psychopath in Who Killed Teddy Bear. Before contemplating suicide, he remembered the last thing James Dean told him. Hollywood is death, Sal. They make you a star, then they take your soul. 1961 should have been a new beginning for Sal Mineo. At 22, with 2 Oscar nominations under his belt, a young and talented actor ready to climb to the peak of his career. However, when he returned from filming Exodus, he was met with a strange silence in Hollywood. At the beginning of that year, everything was still good. He would recall years later in an interview, "My phone was ringing non-stop. My manager, Al Melnick, was excitedly talking about new projects. Then, as if an invisible key had been turned, everything stopped." In March, the expected call from Universal Pictures never came. In April, his meeting at Warner Brothers was canceled at the last minute. By May, he went directly to his manager's office and asked, "What's the problem, Al? Why isn't anyone calling?" Melnick shifted uncomfortably behind his desk. "I've heard some things, Sal," he finally said. "Studio bosses, they're talking about you. There are some rumors." Sal's heart tightened. He knew what was being implied. In Hollywood in the early 1960s, an actor thought to be gay was a liability for studios. Rumors, secrets, and hidden lives were part of the industry, but if an actor's public image was threatened, studios would typically distance themselves quickly. "They didn't dare tell me directly," Sal told a friend. "Nobody said, Sal. We don't want to work with you because of your sexual orientation. Instead, they came up with excuses like, your type doesn't sell anymore. We don't know where to use you. The audience doesn't want to see you in those roles anymore." By summer, the stylish house in Hollywood Hills that Sal had moved into at the beginning of the previous year had become too expensive. As film offers decreased, financial pressure increased. His family still relied on him, expecting help with his siblings' education expenses. At a party at Shadow Moment, when he encountered a producer he knew from before, he better understood the seriousness of the situation. After a few drinks, the man spoke candidly. "I heard you're on the list, Sal. The unofficial blacklist of the major studios. Sorry, buddy. You'll have to stick with B movies for a while. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and turn on the notification bell to learn all the details of Sal Mineo's dramatic fall in Hollywood. Every week, we share the true stories of unforgettable stars in cinema history. 1962 was a year when the situation worsened. Sal, who had received 32 film offers the previous year, was now called for only 3 low-budget films. These films were The Greatest Story Ever Told, Cheyenne Autumn, and The Patsy, all offering small supporting roles. In The Greatest Story Ever Told, an epic production about Jesus' life, Sal portrayed a thief who was crucified. His total screen time was less than 5 minutes. Although director George Stevens praised his performance, most of his scenes were cut in the final edit. During this period, Sal began to experience economic hardships. He had to sell his luxury home and move to a more modest apartment. For the first time, he felt his career was in an irreversible decline. "I tried singing in nightclubs," he would recount. "Music was always my passion. My father played the accordion, and I had learned from him as a child. Maybe I could be successful as a singer." Sal recorded several singles. Songs like "Start Movin'" and "Babyface" showcased the sweet voice of his youth. However, his music career, like his acting, never fully blossomed. His songs achieved average success on radio charts but didn't leave a lasting impact. By 1963, Sal's name was no longer mentioned in major film projects. The 24-year-old, twice Oscar-nominated actor had been pushed outside of Hollywood. This exclusion left him facing a deep identity crisis. "Every morning I looked in the mirror and asked myself, who should I be?" he would recall. "Should I be the person they want me to be, or the real me? And who was the real me?" I had lived an image in Hollywood for so long that sometimes I even forgot my own reality. This internal conflict also affected Sal's personal relationships. Most of his friends distanced themselves to preserve their positions in the industry. Once the name sought after at every invitation, Sal was now rarely invited to Hollywood parties. A few loyal friends like Natalie Wood still continued to see him, but these meetings generally took place in private venues, away from the public eye. Wood once told him, "We all wear masks, Sal. Your mask fell off, that's all." In 1964, one of the darkest turns in Sal's career came when he was offered the role of a phone stalker in Who Killed Teddy Bear? The film depicted a disturbed man who harassed and stalked a dancer working in New York or nightclubs. This role marked a significant change in his career. He was no longer the star of sweet, innocent roles, but an actor of dark, twisted characters. The film contained sexual themes and disturbing images that were considered quite daring for that time. "When I accepted this role, some of my friends thought I was crazy," Sal would recount. "But for me, there was something liberating about this role. For the first time, I was stepping completely outside the image Hollywood had dictated to me." When the film was released, critics praised Sal's performance. Variety magazine wrote, "Mineo takes a bold step to break his own image and delivers a disturbingly convincing performance." However, the film was found shocking by the general audience and failed at the box office. This failure caused Sal to drift further away from mainstream cinema. The once sweet boy was now labeled as troubled and risky. Between 1965 and 1967, Sal's career shifted to the television world. He appeared as a guest star in popular series like The Greatest Show on Earth, Combat, and The Patty Duke Show. These roles provided him with financial support but offered little artistic satisfaction. Television was a kind of shore harbor for actors who had fallen from the film world back then. He explained in an interview, "I loved working, of course, but I always felt like I was missing something." During this period, Hollywood itself was undergoing a major transformation. The studio system was collapsing, and independent productions were on the rise. Films like Bonnie and Clyde, The Graduate, and Easy Rider represented a new understanding of cinema. This period, known as New Hollywood, was also bringing an end to the traditional star system. "Part of my career decline was also about timing," Sal would later reflect. "I was one of the last stars of the old system. When the new wave came, I had already washed ashore." In 1967, Sal began working on a biographical film project about James Dean's life. Dean had been not just a mentor to him, but someone with whom he had formed a deep personal connection. This film was an opportunity both to show his respect for Dean and to revitalize his own career. However, no studio was willing to finance the project. One producer frankly told him, "James Dean is a hero of American youth. They don't want you to tell his story. You understand, don't you?" Sal did understand. He had now become well acquainted with Hollywood's hypocrisy, homophobia, and fears. The Dean project was shelved, but this experience left deep marks on Sal. He now knew he needed to find a different way to tell his own story. 1968 was a turning point for Sal, just as it was for America. The assassinations of Martin Luther King Jr. and Robert Kennedy, Vietnam War protests, and increasing social unrest were deeply shaking the country. In this chaotic environment, Sal also felt it was time to confront his own identity. "That year, I decided to be honest with myself," he would later say. "Hollywood had rejected me, and I decided to reject Hollywood's rules. I would no longer hide." This decision marked the beginning of a new chapter for him. His desire to transition from acting to directing began to grow. He wanted to find stories and characters who, like himself, had been marginalized from the mainstream. And most importantly, he wanted to live his own identity fearlessly and openly. By 1969, Sal turned to Broadway. He took a role in the play, Fortune in Men's Eyes. The play revolved around young inmates in a prison and themes of homosexuality. This project, which was a turning point for him both as an actor and as a person, provided him with the artistic freedom he had long sought. The play gave him a chance to express himself without Hollywood's limitations. Critics praised his performance, and Sal once again felt the artistic recognition he had long missed. "Broadway was a salvation for me," he would recount. "When Hollywood rejected me, theater embraced me. There, my value as an artist was more important than the question of whether my type sells." By the end of 1969, Sal was approaching 30. His bright career in Hollywood was behind him, but his artistic journey was not yet complete. After 8 years of decline, he had finally found a way to make a new beginning. "Sometimes I think," he said in an interview, "maybe falling from Hollywood was the best thing in my life. It liberated me. Now I can be who I truly am, not who I'm supposed to be." However, this new beginning would not be easy. At the end of the 1960 seconds, Sal was still struggling with financial difficulties. The luxurious life of his former glory days was long gone. He had to adapt to a more modest lifestyle. "I never cared about money," he once said. "Of course, I wanted to earn enough for my family and myself. But what really mattered was being able to do meaningful work." During this period, there were moments when he harbored anger toward Hollywood, but over time, this anger gave way to a kind of acceptance. "I refuse to be a victim of the system," he told a friend. "Yes, they excluded me, but I'm still here. I'm still telling stories. I'm still making art." Towards the end of the 1960 seconds, the most important change in Sal's life was making peace with his own identity. He had begun to live his own life on his own terms without waiting for Hollywood's approval. He started to openly express his sexual identity to his close circle of friends. Back then, this was a big step, a close friend would recall. Even in the late 1960 seconds, Being gay, especially in Hollywood, was still a major taboo. Sal showed the courage to live his own truth. By the end of 1969, with the success of Fortune in Men's Eyes, Sal was offered to direct the play. This meant the opening of a new door in his artistic career. He was now ready to be not just an actor, but a storyteller, a visionary. Directing gave me a completely different freedom, he would later say. When you're acting, you're realizing someone else's vision. But as a director, you can tell your own story in your own language. Taking on the direction of Fortune and Men's Eyes was not just a career advancement for him, but also a form of personal expression. By addressing the homosexual themes of the play more openly, he found the opportunity to reflect his own experiences and perspective in his art. This decision caused great controversy in conservative theater circles. While some critics found his approach too open and disturbing, others evaluated it as bold and innovative. Creating controversy was never my goal, Sal explained. I just wanted to be honest. Art requires honesty. If you're not honest with yourself, you can't be honest with your art. During this period, another significant change occurred in Sal's life. He moved from Los Angeles to New York. Physically leaving Hollywood behind carried a symbolic meaning for him. New York offered him a new beginning, a more open-minded environment, and artistic freedom. In New York, I found an acceptance that I could never find in Hollywood, he would recount. There was an art community where who I was didn't matter, but what I did. Towards the end of 1969, Sal Mineo was no longer Hollywood's golden boy. He was an actor pushed outside the system, forgotten by the mainstream. But at the same time, he was a person who had found his own artistic voice and identity. The years of decline almost destroyed me, he would later confess. But they also recreated me. I was no longer the image created by Hollywood, but a person I created myself. In the final days of 1969, Sal said in an interview, "The next decade will be a new beginning for me. I'm not afraid anymore. I'm not hiding anymore. I just want to be myself, and I think I've finally learned how to do that." These words were like a prophecy in a sense. The 1970 seconds would indeed be a new beginning for Sal Mineo, but this new beginning would also be the beginning of his tragic end. "I'm no longer sad about the things Hollywood took from me," he told a friend on the last night of 1969. "Because they could only take my career from me. They couldn't take my soul." And in the end, isn't that what real success is? Being able to keep your soul? Sal Mineo, in his journey that began as one of Hollywood's brightest stars, had rediscovered his own inner star after 8 years of decline. And perhaps this was the most valuable discovery. "Sometimes I think," he said one night while watching the city lights from the window of his apartment in New York, "maybe true success isn't when people applaud you, but when you can applaud yourself. And I, after a long time, can finally applaud myself." In the early 1970 seconds, Sal Mineo, now in his 30 seconds, would continue to chart his own path in the art world, long after Hollywood had forgotten him. But that's the subject of another story. Thank you for watching this part of Sal Mineo's life story. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and turn on the notification bell. In the next episode, we'll tell you about Sal's artistic renaissance in the 1970 seconds and his tragic end. Share your thoughts in the comments. Why do you think Hollywood excluded a talented actor like Sal Mineo? Was the industry's homophobia or the changing understanding of cinema more influential in his decline?